everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks to Scott for inviting. I used to be, or sometimes still am, a Ceeds facilitator. So this is great to be returning home, but it's also wonderful to be sharing what I do in my other job. And this is my contact information if you would like to get a hold of us. And also I have these handouts here. You can take one. All right, so we have 20 minutes to talk about well-being. That's my passion, well-being and flourishing. So if you take a look at this battery, think about where you are in this present moment. So this is your energy level. Are you green all the way, or are you running on the red? And then just think about what you do when your phone is this way, right? So if we're going to go on a long journey and our phone is already on red, what do? You have to plug it in, right? And so this is what we use as a metaphor for HPEP. So think about your own energy level, your ability to reach others, and see how much capacity you have to do that. Because without a full green battery, it's going to give. What happens is you're going to run empty and have a lot of burnout and all kinds of things that I'm sure we're all familiar with, right? So yesterday we had a full day retreat. For some reason, the computer forgot to be plugged in. I probably forgot. I'll take responsibility for that. But halfway through, it ran out. So we're in the middle of this Zoom meeting. We're supposed to be all together, right? And they're calling on us like, what does the HPEP team think? And our battery just goes dead. Zoom's disconnected. Just the worst of what could happen. So we plug it back in. And what's interesting is that even if it was connected to a power source, the computer would not turn on. Because why? The battery was so dead. It was beyond dead. And so we're kind of laughing about it and thinking like, wow, this is kind of like us as humans, right? Even when we have low energy and we just run completely out, we're running on fumes, and you plug back in, sometimes it takes a while for it to fill back up to you have the point so you can even turn back on, right? So this is what our premise is to help educators and parents fill back up so you can be the best selves when helping your students and your children. So next I want you to take just a few minutes and envision from the space that you're in, wherever you are at. If you're red, totally okay. If you're full on 100% capacity, even better. But think about what is your highest vision for your life, for your work, for the Ceeds plan that you're doing. So what does that look like? What does that feel like? And feel like gratitude if you've already accomplished this, right? So in HPEP, we talk a lot about the power of visioning, manifesting Mondays. What you focus on expands. So being intentional about what you want instead of what you don't want. If someone tells you don't run, what are you going to think of doing first? Running, and then you have to put like a cross around it, right? So instead of don't run, let's say walk. Instead of saying don't stress out, let's say let's focus on well-being. Focusing on the positive and being intentional about it is what is the key, I think, to well-being and flourishing. And so we have adapted this is from a book, Brighter, Brighter, Brighter. There's actually a piece project in Maya's class. She helped me write this and said, what is one thing that you're going to do to change the world? And I thought, okay, well, I guess I can write a book just for the class. So I wrote this book, turned it in, thought that was the end of it. And then Maya's like, okay, then I got to publish it. I'm like, what do you mean? What? No, I'm not publishing it. But with her help, thank you, Maya. I heard her in the cloud. Is she still here? I don't know. But it's a book about the star in our hearts. So we talked a lot this about in HPEP, but also likened to the bowl of light, right? This idea, this concept that we are all full of light. We all have a star in our heart. And so you can see the little star in his heart here. And depending on how we interact with others and what happens to us, it can glow or shrink down, yeah? So remember this situation where you have to go into a new place. No friends, you're new, you're inside the cafeteria, you're thinking, oh gosh, where do I sit, right? And this guy is thinking here, what should I do? Should I invite him over? Or should I just kind of decide and pretend I don't see him, yeah? So how many of you as a child would invite a new person to come sit with you? You don't have to raise your hand, or you can. Okay, so possibly what would happen if you do invite someone is that both of you become brighter and brighter, right? So the star in your heart or the ball of light is able to radiate, and you're both feeling a lot shinier. You're able to help others and connect on this level. So if you sometimes are being shy and don't want to invite the person in, that's okay. That happens too. But look what happens to his star, right? So it shrinks down. There's a lot of sadness, a lot of unease. And you imagine the difference between walking around like this and the impact that you can make, and then walking around like this and the impact that you can make. Different. And we have the ability to change this every day in every single little and big interaction that we do. So think about this and your ability to radiate. We talk a lot about this as well. So this is social network theory, something that I am kind of geeking out upon, but each thing is, each circle, there is a person, and each circle that's connected is represented by a line. And we really are all connected, and what you do in part of the network, even if you think it might not reach the person in your next community, in your next part of the world, it really does connect. And it's like that effect, right? What you radiate into this network affects others far and wide. So as we go through our peace plans and our spark plans, think about how you're radiating and what type of network you have to radiate into, and as well as how you are being affected by this network. You know, we're on social media, and even though it's a invisible network, it is something that still affects us. Research shows that if you read sad and angry things, it will literally affect your personal mood in the real life. Yeah, so we have to be careful of what we take in, what we give out in real life, in online as well. And one of my favorite concepts to talk about is this idea of comfort zone. There are three to make it very simple. The first one is green zone. So green zone, think about it in your body. Where do you feel it? It's when you are comfortable. It's where you're safe. And when we try to do HCAP, we try to remind people that you have a green zone and how do you get back there as fast as you can when you need to. So this is our happy place. People like to hang out here. I love green zone, like taking naps, that type of cozy, homey feeling. So think about a memory in your body when you're in green zone and where you feel that in your body. Okay. And then next, we're going to be a little bit shocking, but red zone is complete stress zone. So think about a time just for a brief second when you're so stressed out that you couldn't do anything. So this is flight, fight, or freeze zone. Yeah. Like you can't be learning in this zone. Here, stress, this is where the wheels come off and you just have to rest many times. And sometimes we're forced here to rest. And that's our body's way of telling us, hey, slow down, you're overworking, you need to plug me in, right? But this magical yellow zone here, the stretch zone, sorry, is where the magic happens. So it's where things feel awkward or unfamiliar, but if you can process through and hold that unfamiliar, okay space, then this is where true learning occurs. So oftentimes, like you're doing your peace plans now, it might feel a little bit awkward to take an idea, right, and bring it to fruition into your communities, but it is where the magic happens. If you're green zone and you're comfy in your bed, you can't really make too much change there for the world. But if you're too far beyond your comfort zone, you're stressed out beyond, you also can't do anything there because then it just becomes protecting and surviving, right? But when you come back to this yellow zone slightly in the middle, that's again where the magic happens. So when we do our professional development, we're always trying to push you into yellow zone on purpose. So it feels a little bit uncomfortable because you're like, oh, this is a little bit scary, but scary and exciting are very thin lines, right? So this is a concept to think about. So think about when your body's at stress, how does that feel, red zone? And then think about how when you're slightly uncomfortable, where that feels in your body. Okay, so take 1 minute to talk to your friend. I hope you guys don't know each other. If you don't, please introduce yourselves and talk about just one word in each of the zones. How did that feel in your body? So green, comfort, yellow, stretch, and red, stress zone. So one word with your partner. How did that feel? Right, ready, set, go. You can have 3 people too if you need. Okay, thank you for sharing. So that's super fast. Hopefully you can tell the difference, right, between the zones.
Yeah, yeah. This is yeah.
All right, let's get back. Thank you for sharing. So huge. I love it. So anyway, there's different zones, right? To be aware of where you are is super important. And I want to share I have a project that's called HPEP Spark Aloha, and it is a federally funded grant through the US DOE. And we are getting funding to help folks like you in the community, educators, parents to support your well-being and flourishing. So I have an invite to you. There's a flyer. If you haven't gotten one, please raise your hand. But we have a cohort that's happening. It's 10 weeks for the beginning part. And then the other part is a Spark Aloha plan, which is very much like a peace action plan. It has to be around well-being and or literacy. So if any of your peace plans align with that, you're welcome to roll it over to our program. We've had some past Seeds of Peace participants come to HPEP as well. And the great part about it is that in addition to all the great effects that you have personally, you can receive up to $500 to support those plans. And each person can receive this $500 for your school to implement. So the last group we had were 3 Seeds of Peace people that had a fee of $1,500 to implement their peace plan in their school. So super fun. Anyway, we have 10 weeks. It's all online. We do online retreats. I know it sounds really boring, but I promise this is like a Zoom that you've never experienced. We send you the retreat box with all kinds of goodies, and we do interactive things online. So you can do it from your home. It's open to preschool to grade 12 across the state of Hawaii. These are just some of the interventions that we do. So we draw upon positive psychology, research-based things. So super fun adult homework. Yeah, we do SEL for children. This is kind of like the SEL heart-centered things for adults. First week, malama. Oops, wrong button. We do focus on your body. So your first week's homework is to sleep more. That's it. I know you get sleep tracker, you get happy faces, super fun. Sleep more and move your body. Homework, that's what you do. At the end of the week, you tell us how it went. Next week, values in action. So we have focus on character strengths. What are your character strengths? It's a way to classify people based on their strengths and not their deficits. Third week, we do 3 good things. We do an exercise of that. Fourth week, we do ACR, which I'm going to talk a little bit if I have time. It's the best way to respond to good news that will build relationships. Week 5, we do kindness booster, concept of ha, breathing in, breathing out, metaphorically, giving, receiving. 6th week, we do Hakalao, big picture perspective. We have a partner, Uncle Noah Schweitzer, who talks about this concept and really helps us integrate that into real life. Week 7, bold of light, we talk about meaning of things. Week 8 is gratitude. Week 9 is savoring every phase, no matter where you are. And then week 10 is meaning. So how it works is you watch a video, you do the homework, you tell us how it is, and then we connect online as a community. It's super fun. We do 3 retreats. And this is what I want to talk about. Let me see if we have enough time. Do I have time? What time is it? 1 minute till 5 minutes. Okay. Anyway, this is a concept for one of the weeks. It's called ACR, active constructive responding. Has anyone heard about this? No. Okay. Some people are nodding their heads. So I'm going to review it. Active constructive responding, the only way that's found research-based to build a relationship. This is not rocket science. This is just a way to put some words to what you already know. So ACR, when someone gives you good news, you are joy multiplying. You are taking what they said, you're being enthusiastic, and you're being interested. It's the only way. So if someone says, hey, I'm running the marathon, and you say, oh my gosh, it's good for you, and you ask them about it, and you just be engaged, that's the only way to build a relationship. Kind of like dull, right? The next way, though, is the most dangerous one. It's called passive constructive. It is when you're saying the words, but you have no energy or good intention behind it. This is, surprisingly, the most dangerous way to respond. So if you want to disconnect from a partner, disconnect from your child and make them feel unseen and unheard, do this one. But I know you don't want to do that. So I'm going to tell you an example. So it's, again, lacking the emotion, understated support. So I'm running a marathon. Wow, it's good for you. Like that doesn't feel good at all, right? Then we have active destructive. It is a joy thief. It's when someone tells you every single thing that is wrong about what you're doing, often under the guise of like helping you or I'm concerned, right? I'm running a marathon. Oh my gosh. Have you thought about your knees? I heard it's really bad for your knees. You know, and you go on and on and on and on. Don't do this. Not a good way to the relationship. And then we have passive destructive. I know we're all guilty of probably some of these across our lifetime. Passive destructive is when someone steals your thunder. So you're telling them a good news, and then that person is taking that news and running with it. Hey, I'm running a marathon. Oh my gosh, I'm going to Vegas next week, and I'm so excited. And then go down the road, and you're like, you know. So anyway, these are 4 types. I'm sorry, I wanted to have you work with a partner, but maybe we have at the end a little bit of time. So think about in your head, though, at least think about a time that you were giving good news to someone and what the response was. If it was active, I'm sure you're building a relationship, right? If sometimes they're gonna say the words and you don't feel heard, like someone's washing the dishes and you're talking to them, or they're emailing you, talking to them, they're busy, but the way we receive it and the way we feel does not feel good. So maybe you gotta take some time to say, let's pause, come back at another time. Joy thief, negative, negative, negative. And you pointed all the ways that you were wrong or the concerns that I have. And sometimes it's done out of lots of love, but there's a great time to do that. The first thing you want to do though is connect, yeah? And then conversation hijacker, stealing your thunder. Don't make it all about you. We'll have cohort time. There's information there. It starts January 20th to April 1st, all online. See the Piece again is our partner. So you receive up to $325 in a personal stipend if you do all of it, and then the $500 per person per school. If you know people, parents, you can put it again together. We can have multiple people from schools and do a gigantic Peace/Sparkaloha plan. And that is after you go through those 10 weeks, you have until November of next year to implement. Then we have a big party where we talk about all plans, and it's super fun. Daily focus, this is a way, if you join us, we'll talk about manifesting Monday, gratitude Tuesday, what's going right Wednesday, throwback Thursday, aloha Friday, strengths and skill Saturday, and Sunday. So it's a way to continue doing the PPIs after the program is finished. And then I also want to mention, we also partner with Jose back there in Matsunaga, and we have a wonderful scholarship for educators to get your graduate certificate for free. It's $12,000 value, and you just have to apply here. It's due June 22. So if you have questions, ask Jose or ask myself. But we are looking to support specifically Native Hawaiian educators and those who work with Native Hawaiian children. So if you can show us how that certificate can affect your work in positive ways, you're the ones that we're looking for. That's it. And I think I'm out of time. Yeah. But it's been such a pleasure to talk to you about it. I'm sorry that we didn't get a chance to practice as much, but again, your homework then, your call to action is now when someone gives you good news and you actually like them and you want to build a relationship with them, please practice ACR. It's something that comes, I'm sure, natural to many of us, but be interested. Take some time, put your email away. Just for a second, put your phone down, be present in that and see how it helps your relationships flourish. And then when folks respond, you can share that slide. I like to share it with others. And so my mom and I have a running joke, like if I tell her something, she's busy, I'm like, hey, that's some passive destructive there. You know, it's good to use that same language with people that you love. But if you have any questions, let me know. If you're interested in learning more, please join us. The application is due 12/12. That's next, I think, Monday. It's completely free to join, and we're a beloved partner of Ceeds and Matsunaga. So hope to see you online. Thank you. Oh yeah, question. Yes.
Naomi, are you just providing the age test just for educators in schools, or is it for organizations too?
Orgs too. Yeah. So So it's really wide open. It's parents, their caretakers, being caretakers, educators in any sense of the word. So teachers, aides, office staff, we had a cafeteria manager, which I think is awesome, and counselors, basically everyone here and your family and friends. So come on. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, yes.
Can you go back to the walking on the slide again?
Sure. We all have our, so I think on that worksheet or the handout at CASA is a link tree. Oh, if not, the link tree, the back end is HPEP and all the information is there. So to application, to Spark. We also have parent buoys. We have a lot of things happening. But thank you so much. I appreciate the invite and go forth and hopefully flourish in this busy season. So thank you so much.
And I just want to say this is one of the best parts of my job at Ceeds, partnering with Naomi. I actually have the privilege of actually writing these $500 checks
Oh, yes, and
to each
reviewing.
school. So that feels really, really good. We've had action plans that have to do with yoga retreats on campus, healthy eating workshops on campus, staff retreats, like mindfulness retreats, right? Naomi?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll pay for your room.
I know, you should join us. You
yeah.
should.
It's really similar to your folks' action plans. These are what you folks think you need and what you think your staff needs and what you think your students need. So we allow you folks to define what your self-care and well-being needs are. And then we pay you to make it happen, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's way to explain the program.
It's so cool.
Cool. Thanks, Naomi. One more round of applause for Naomi. Naomi said she's going to leave the handouts right here. So if you folks want to take more for your families and friends, go ahead. Okay, on to our next guest speaker, Veronica. Hey, Veronica. This is the first time we're meeting in person. Veronica Lam. She's the Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of Establish. Since 2008, she's worked to pioneer intervention and aftercare support for labor and sex trafficking survivors in Hawaii. She's personally mentored over 100 survivors, living with most of them while running one of the only trafficking crisis homes on Oahu. She's an expert in rehabilitative housing and effective mentoring techniques. She has authored and facilitated hundreds of trainings and lectures, equipping thousands of professionals and volunteers on best practices in working with victims. Since 2017, she's worked as a victim specialist for a nonprofit that provides comprehensive case management to trafficked and high-risk individuals. So without further ado, thanks for being here, Veronica. The floor is yours.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Running the slides, and then let me make sure that I'm on time and at 11, right? Okay, good deal. Well, it's great to see you all here on this Saturday morning. I'm Veronica Lamb, and we're going to have a community discussion. So I would like you guys to be ready to think and answer some questions as we start off talking about trafficking. That's the next one. So we're going to have this conversation around understanding trafficking, and this is where it's going to be interactive, okay? What you guys think about trafficking, what it means, who are traffickers, who are victims, that kind of thing. And then we're going to talk a bit about, I'm going to share with you some tips around intervention and prevention, strategies for difficult conversations, was specifically what Seeds of Peace asked me to help you guys think about how to have those. So let's go to the next slide. So what is trafficking? What do you guys think trafficking is? Or what comes to mind? It may be what you hear other people in the community saying that they think trafficking is. So you can shout out answers. Moving groups of people for specific reasons. That's something that I hear often. What else do you guys think? Without consent, moving people without consent. Okay. How about some other ideas? Involving slavery? Modern. Yeah, modern slavery. Yep, that's a good one. What else? Teenage girls being sex trafficked.
Teenage girls being sex trafficked. So that's good. What else do you guys think about trafficking? Where did, like, does it happen here? Does it happen somewhere else? Like global, everywhere. Yeah. Okay, good. So we're gonna move to another slide and we're gonna go over a few definitions of trafficking. So there's actually different types of trafficking. So the general category would be human trafficking. Okay, and I think that's what most people kind of have a general idea of, and then there's a few little aspects of the specific types that get thrown in there, right? So it's actually interesting. I don't know why they named it trafficking, because the law itself has nothing to do with movement, but almost everybody in the community thinks that it does. So it's very easy to get confused with like smuggling and things like that. But human trafficking is a crime that involves exploiting a person for labor, for services, or commercial sex. So we could be trafficked right here in this room, like never leave the room, and be trafficked if we're forced to work, if we're forced to engage in some sort of, right? Labor trafficking has to do with the subjugation of that person for involuntary servitude, okay? Peonage, debt bondage, or slavery. So for example, does anybody remember, if you go far back, like kind of 2007, I think that's when the news broke here about Alone Farms and trafficking that was happening there, right? So that was the biggest labor trafficking case in the United States history. Unfortunately, it fell apart in court, but it was an example of people being brought over and in debt bondage. So it was a whole scheme of, well, why don't you come to America? We know some people that will help your family and your village take out a loan so that you can have the money to pay for your visa, and then we'll set you up working with a farm, and then you'll make all this money, and you can send all the money back, and then everybody in your family or everybody in your village will suddenly be rich, right? But instead, it was just a connection to loan sharks, you know, and then they were brought over, and then some of the guys actually stayed at my house after they left there, and just like wooden pallets. You guys know wooden pallets? So I saw pictures of what they were living in. So it would literally be a wooden pallet for the floor and a wooden pallet for each side, and then like a tarp over the top. And that's what they lived in on the farms. So that's an example of debt bondage. So they weren't allowed to leave the farm. They weren't allowed to do anything because they owed all this money. It's like, oh, you owe me because you're living on my land. So you owe me for rent for this little like shack, and you owe me for food and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Now it's like with the fishermen, right?
Yep, fishermen, it's another great example. So we had like a big AP press story that broke about that several years ago, but then it all went silent, unfortunately. But that was just about the longline fishing industry. And so part of our docks here are international waters, and that means that our local law enforcement have no jurisdiction over that. It also means that those people are fishermen, but they don't have to get a visa and all of those things that you normally have to do to be able to set foot on American soil. So they classify that portion of the docks as not American soil. That way they're allowed to be there even without their visa. But that means that whatever is happening on the boats, like they don't have anybody to report to. And a lot of times they speak different languages and don't have a lot of education. And so they're not always able to reach out. So that's another example, great one of labor trafficking. Sex trafficking. So this is what comes to mind a lot. This is where I specialize mostly. This is where we see most of our victims. And Hawaii is between sex trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation. So sex trafficking, a commercial sex act induced by force, fraud, or coercion, or in which the person induced to perform such act has not attained 18 years of age. Okay, so what those words mean is that if there's an adult, there has to be one of the following: force, fraud, or coercion, right? Coercion being like manipulation and deception and fraud, that kind of stuff. There doesn't have to be all three. There only has to be one, and that's for adults. If they are not an adult, so let's say that they're 16, they're 17, they're 14, whatever they are, they cannot trade sexual acts for something of value for any reason at all. Okay, so like there cannot be a 16-year-old stripper. That is a 16-year-old sex trafficking victim. Does that make sense? So even if they say that they're choosing it. Commercial sexual exploitation of children, this refers to a whole range of crimes involving the sexual abuse or exploitation of a child for the financial benefit of anybody else. This talks more specifically about that exchange of value. And that exchange of value can be given or received by anybody. It doesn't have to be the victim, right? So somebody can be in control of a victim, but then taking in money for basically like renting out that kid. Does that make sense? So that can cover like a 14, 15-year-old that runs away from home, runs away from a group home, finds an older boyfriend and is staying with the older boyfriend, right? And then maybe the older boyfriend or even the older girlfriend has other friends that that kid parties with sometimes, right? Does sexual favors with them or sends his photos, those kinds of things. So that older lover, whatever that is, boyfriend or girlfriend, could be getting some benefit. Like maybe they're getting free drugs from the drug dealer if they give the dealer time with the kid, right? Or maybe they're collecting actual money. Or we've had cases where there's been parents not in poverty. So sometimes we see this, a lot of people think it only happens to impoverished families, but we've seen it in very well-off families where the well-off families, which have great thriving businesses in the community, are frustrated and they're like, well, my 14-year-old daughter was just always partying with her friends and having all these men over to the house. So I started charging her and her friends rent for the rooms to use in our house, because if they're going to have parties, then I'm going to make money off of it. So it can look very different ways in the community. We can go to the next one. So let's talk about who could be a trafficker. Who do you think could be a trafficker? How would you describe them? What would you expect them to look like? Where would you expect them to be? Start throwing out some ideas, some generalizations.
Anybody.
Anybody? Okay, that's a, what's that?
Corporations.
Corporations and agencies. That's a good point. What else?
When you're a kid, it's in a dark alley.
When you're a kid, it's in a dark alley. That's what kids think, right? Yeah. Right? It's gonna be like stranger danger.
Yeah. Somebody who grooms.
Somebody who grooms, provides a lot of attention. Yeah. Family members, a boyfriend or girlfriend. Yep. What about like the white van rumor? That's always so popular on social media, right? Very common. Not often the case that it's a white van. Actually, in all of the victims that I've ever helped, no one has ever been trafficked by a complete stranger and just kidnapped by a stranger. So hundreds of victims. None of them was by a complete stranger. So how it can work is it can be moms, it can be grandmoms, it can be uncles, it can be guys, it can even be teenagers, it can be peers. Anybody can be a trafficker. And a lot of kids get really surprised and freaked out when we say like, oh, do you think a grandma could be a trafficker? And like, no way, like I run away, or, you know, I push her down or something like that. But they don't realize that like there's a lot of mama sons actually here in Hawaii that manage many of the sex clubs that we have here. So whether that be the massage parlors or some of the karaoke bars or the strip clubs or whatever, there's always a mama there managing everybody, right? And most of them are grandmas. And then we get into the more stereotypical, like the males or the men, the females, the gross old man, like something like that, right? That people tend to imagine. But we also have teenagers. So we've had I think the youngest trafficker that we've had charged in Hawaii was 16 years old for trafficking in peers. And that happened in a public school, and there was an older well, whatever, there was an adult male that would be the primary trafficker. Then there were teenage boys that he taught to basically be recruiters and was teaching them to be pimps, right? And getting them to pimp out their girlfriends, and then teaching them to go recruit younger kids. And so it actually spread through the high school and through the middle school. And there was even some dates that would come to the campus. So they would just meet them in a back parking lot and do a car date. So a trafficker could be anybody. And so we don't want to teach our kids to just be afraid of like stranger danger, right? We want to get them to watch out for everybody. Okay, next one. Who are the victims? How old do you think a victim would be? Any age? What's that? Somebody's gonna yell. You guys are quiet.
Generally younger,
Generally younger. What do you think?
or the elderly.
Or the elderly? Okay. What do you think by younger? What does that mean? Under the age of 16? Even infants? Anybody else?
Probably less than 30.
Anything less than 30 would be common. All ages. What about genders? Both. Mhm. What do you,
Maybe more non-English speakers too.
more non-English speakers? Idea? So the victims, you're right, it can range in age, and unfortunately, we have even had infant victims in Hawaii. Typically, when it's an infant, the cases that we've seen when it's an infant or a toddler, usually the mother is also a child and is also being trafficked. And so the, whatever, 14-year-old girl, right, gets pregnant by her trafficker. Trafficker's in control and is trafficking the teenager along with the infant eventually at some point. And I just want to clarify that in the sex acts, that can be like in person, or that could be like live stream, that could be video, that could be photos, right? It covers all of those kinds of things, sexting and pornography and stripping and all the things, right? So the victims really can be anybody. We typically see the youngest victims. Well, a lot of our victims have had traumatic abuse in their background, right? Where there's molestation in the family. Our youngest victims typically have familial traffickers, meaning somebody in the family, somebody that's a caretaker is the one trafficking them or allowing it. We typically find that our male victims that identify as straight, so they identify as male, straight males, their trafficking often started as familial and started very young like this. Like they would call it like molestation gone bad. They don't have a ton of words for it, but that's typically how they describe it. Girls are typically targeted at middle school age. So you're looking at like 10, 11, 12 years old, because that's an easier age to manipulate, right? To confuse, to woo, to say that you're really pretty, to like, or, like you're a great person, and try and separate away from the rest of the friend group and things like that. So isolation is used a lot. We have had victims all the way up into their 60s. And some of them are new victims where they thought that they were coming here to get some sort of a job, and it wasn't really legit once they got here. We have had some, like there was one survivor that we've known for years and helped for many years. So she was actually what they call in the game. She got in the game when her mother died, when she was a teenager on the mainland. Then got caught up with a trafficker and trafficked here. I think she got here maybe when she was 18, and then lived out here actually for decades in the game. And she never actually got out of the game until she was in her 60s. And so she has quite an amazing story of survival. Okay, next one. What are the warning signs? So if we're going to talk about difficult conversations and things like that, talk about kids in the community, oh, it can be anybody. we don't need to have you paranoid about everybody in every situation, but what do you think the warning signs are of actual trafficking happening in somebody's life? Isolation, that's a good one. How would you know if somebody, I think here you said earlier, something about like grooming or building that relationship, like how would you know? What would be the warning signs that a kid or a young adult is being groomed? They're secretive, okay, keeping secrets, somebody's teaching them to keep secrets, what else?
New fancy things.
New fancy things, that's great, because money and like bling and wow, right? Especially if there's no understanding of, you know, how did they afford this? This is not their typical type of items that their family can provide for them. What else might be warning signs? Substance abuse, yep, that's a good sign because that can be a way of numbing, and a lot of times traffickers also like to have a little bit of substance abuse in their victims, just so it keeps them a little foggy, not clear-headed, not totally on top of their game and thinking straight.
Maybe they're not showing for school.
They might not be showing up for school, so that's a good point. They might be gone for long periods of time. What if they've been on the run and then they come back to school? What would you be? What could you possibly see that might make you think there could have been trafficking going on while they were gone?
They might dress a little bit fabulous.
Dress, like a change in their clothing, yeah, so there could be an overly sexualized appearance or attire that they're now wearing, right? It's like their value and their identity has suddenly shifted to be a sexual object, so that's a good one. But they say they were on the run and they were just like homeless, sleeping out on the street. How would you expect them to look when they get back? Disheveled, right? A little bit rough, right? So if they come back and they look really good, like their hair's done, nails are done, things like that, that can be a warning sign that somebody was taking care of them. What about in conversation? How do you think their interaction with the peers would be going? What would peers be saying about a kid that's being trafficked, working in the sex industry, say? That sort of general.
That they party hard.
Hmm?
That they party hard.
Oh, that they party hard? What else? That's a good one. Mood and attitude changes for sure. Mhm. What do you think that peers would be saying? About a kid that's in the sex industry? They're a problem child. Adults probably would say that, yeah.
Peers would say they're bored.
Yes, peers would say they're whores, right? Whores, hoes, sluts, rumors of multiple abortions, rumors of sleeping around, right? Other kids being angry at them, particularly if it's a girl, right? What about a guy? What would be the warning signs of like a teenage boy that's being recruited in by a pimp to learn how to pimp? How to be a sneaker pimp, that's what they call it. They don't have a car yet, they're just walking around in their sneakers.
Withdrawn.
Withdrawn, maybe. What's that? They could become aggressive, right? Rumors of domestic violence, right? What else would you see in somebody that is training or becoming a pimp? Overconfidence, yes, that could be happening. So in one of our schools, we had a boy that was walking around telling everybody like, I'm a pimp and all this kind of stuff. And the girls were like, oh my gosh, the teachers hear him, everybody hears him and nobody hears. Like they just thought like, oh, he's acting out some sort of like hip hop song or something. But it wasn't, it was real. He was trafficking the girls. And they were like, nobody cares. Everybody knows that I'm his girlfriend and they don't care that he's a pimp and that he's pimping me. Right? So you look for domineering behavior. You may notice females in particular, or whoever is the subservient victims. There's a lot of rules in trafficking, so they're not allowed to make eye contact with the traffickers so that the victims will suddenly keep their eyes down. Those that are stepping up into positions of power, control, and that could be a recruiting position or that could be in a actual pimping, like trafficking position, and they become domineering. That's where you see those maybe rumors of domestic violence, rumor of having the drugs, of having the alcohol, of being the party supplier. of suddenly having, playing and showing off, switching, intimate partners frequently, right? And, being in control where peers start being very submissive towards them. And if somebody defies them, then they might lose their temper and like blow up quickly, because that would be a violation of rules. Okay, those are the warning signs. So strategies for conversation, right? We've talked about a lot of difficult things, but you know, we need to think about how to have conversation, because you guys are around kids, you're around young adults, you're people who care about your community. So just in everyday life, right? Like you're seeing things, you're observing things, you care about people and what's going on. So let's talk about a difficult conversation, right? How do we, if we think somebody might be getting groomed into it or might already be in it, what do we do? How would you start the conversation? So we've got to start. Ask questions. Ask questions, okay. Where do you ask questions?
Ideally privately.
Ideally privately, one-to-one, semi-privately is what I'll say, right? Semi-privately. Because you don't want there to be room for accusation, right? Either way, so semi-privately, try to ask questions, okay? Any idea, what kind of questions would you start off with? Like, think of any of the scenarios that we've described. Imagine that child.
Like maybe just showing care first of all to try and make some kind of connection.
Care.
Just checking in on you. How's things?
How's things, just checking in, right?
Are you safe?
Are you safe? That could be a good question if you have a relationship with them, right? But that's a strong question, and you probably gotta have that relationship before you can ask that.
Has anything changed at home or in your environment?
Has anything changed at home or in your environment?
What have you been up to?
What have you been up to? Yeah. Would you offer anything that you're noticing? Like, hey, I noticed you were gone for a week. Hey, I noticed that your friendship seems to have shifted here.
I think you gotta be careful because they can go defensive really quickly. So
Yeah.
you have to kind of start that gently.
Yeah, so starting the conversation gently. If you have a relationship with a kid, obviously that makes it easier, right? Coming from a place of compassion, a place of care. The previous speaker, you know, talking about how do we connect with people, right? How do we not steal their joy, right? How do we not suggest everything that's possibly wrong with their situation and what they're doing? And those are all good things to keep in mind, right? So you try and like refrain from all of your opinions and be a good listener is a good part of it, right? So keeping the conversation going is doing a really good job of listening, right? And this can be really hard because if you care about that kid, if you care about your school, if it's actually your kid and you're a parent, this can be really concerning and scary because you don't know what you're going to hear, right? Are they going to say that they've been sneaking out of the house at night? Are they going to say that they have an older intimate lover, you know? Are they going to say that they have been like sending nudes and now they're getting blackmailed? Like, what is it that they're going to say? Because any of those things, right, are easy starts for traffickers to pull somebody in and control them, right? So this can be highly concerning. So one of the things that I suggest in the conversation, and you may have to say it, I mean, you're all mandated reporters, and that's important to keep in mind and to communicate to kids like, hey, I care about you, and I'm going to keep you safe. Like, I'm going to report if you're not safe, right? A lot of people are afraid of saying that, but it's important for the kids to know that. And if the kid is actually talking to you about something serious, it's because they want a responsible adult who will make a difference to know, even if they tell you they don't, right? They got plenty of friends they can go tell, right? They're telling you, there's a reason why they're telling you. So don't get too scared by that. But you may have to say, like, look, for this conversation, I'm going to withhold like freaking out about anything, like for these next like 10 minutes, I'm just here to listen and hear what's been going on for you. And then we'll figure out a path forward or something like that. And as a parent, that can be really hard. Or if you're a person who has known that kid for years, that can be really difficult. But you kind of want to have a little bit of amnesty there. And of course, you can follow up and be like, okay, so given all the things that we've known and how things have gotten, you know, down a slippery slope or gotten dangerous for you, we need to think about how do we keep you safe, because that's priority. Of course, the kid will throw some things back in your face, like, oh no, like you're holding this against me and you're judging me, and you've just got to be the adult and be like, no, like, I love you, I care about you, this is only coming from compassion and responsibility. Like, I would never want somebody to leave me in this situation. I'm not going to leave you in the situation, or I'm not going to intentionally like allow things to trigger you into the situation again. Does that make sense? Okay, so follow-up is probably going to be needed, okay, in the conversation. And your goal is just to get some information going. Okay, next slide. So we can do questions, and then I think I have resources. Is it next? No? Huh, I thought I did resources. No? Dang it. Okay, so let's see, maybe I can tell you. Can you guys write down, because I want you to know the mandated reporter hotline number, so I gotta look it up in my phone number. That's the most important one that I want you guys to know. So as mandated reporters, if you ever even suspect that a child is being trafficked, you have no proof, you have no confirmation, you're still a mandated reporter, and the suspicion needs to be reported, and it gets reported to a trafficking hotline. Okay, so are you guys ready to write that down? 808-832-1999.
Veronica, we can send this out too.
Yeah, we can send that out. Sorry, I didn't mess up my slide there, but that's the most important number for you guys to know. And there are resources in the community that go to schools and do prevention programs. There are case management programs, like under Susanna Wesley, they do case management statewide for victims. And then maybe my established slide. Okay, yeah, this is just about us. We do training and consultation. All the years that we've been involved in it, we now just really want to help the system respond better to survivors of trauma and trafficking. Because it's the most vulnerable kids, the most traumatized kids that are the most difficult to work with. And they're also the ones that typically get picked up by traffickers, right? And so we want to help the system continue to improve there so that victims don't keep falling through the cracks, you know, and they can really get the support they need. So I went over, but are there any questions?
I have a question, Veronica.
Yeah.
As people that work, that see kids every day, how do we all do a better job of bringing this information into schools so that it is an ongoing conversation? And our kids know that the schools are the safe places for them when they have the adults protected in those schools. Do you have any suggestions for everybody about things?
Yeah. So there's actually a great organization that does prevention. I do some of the training sessions for them. It's called Pacific Survivors Center. And so they have a program that's called STOP, STOPP. And there is a video that they have, which is actually, it's a voiceover of multiple different victims that were trafficked as children here in Hawaii. And so the story is very relatable to the kids, very powerful. And so it's like a 10-minute video that they watch. And then myself or whoever is doing the training, can lead them through a conversation and a discussion about how can you recognize traffickers like around you in a situation, and how do you get out of it when you get those spidey senses that like, whoa, this party is going a different direction than what I want. How do you get out? So we talk them through that. And try to do it really responsibly so that we don't teach them how to traffic each other, but we don't talk about the glorification of it, but just really them like, how do you get out of this, and to watch for the warning signs. So I'd recommend STOP, and again, I can give you guys that information. So they're DOE approved, and so they can go in, if you want them in your classroom, like they can come and give a presentation virtually or in person. So that's a really great resource, particularly for the school environment. Yeah.
One more question. How about for our youngest children?
Youngest children?
Yeah, what are your recommendations? How do we think about elementary?
Elementary.
School age?
I think that, I don't know, it's hard to think about in a community level. I would say in a family and in a home level, at least what I do, because I have small kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old, and their whole life has been raised around the women that we've brought in. And so that's who they know as aunties, as these survivors. So I've always had very early conversation with them about just like body anatomy and safety and who's allowed to touch or look and who's not. And I don't ever bring up the idea of stranger danger. I just, just generally talk and bring up this conversation. We have it frequently. So even my son, actually this morning, we were having a conversation about whatever. He brought up his privates about something. And so I was just like, oh, has anybody asked that question? Or, this kind of stuff. So we just sort of have that conversation regularly. I think it's important for kids to be able to talk openly and honestly with parents and with people who care about them. So whatever ways that you can show that you respectfully love and care about an individual in an appropriate way and in a non-judgmental way, want to hear about how they're doing and what they're experiencing in life. They just need a safe place to be able to talk. They will talk if they feel safe, if they feel like somebody genuinely cares. It is amazing the things that the kids will say to me or to my partner, when we finally get in a room with them, and just sort of say like, well, what's going on? I'm like, well, how did that work out? You were on the run, but you have a nice watch. Where'd you get that? Right? Like, so noticing what's going on with them actually lets them know that you see them and you care about them.
What if students create artworks or drawings that suggest maybe something's happening that they won't talk?
Yeah. Artwork is very powerful. I mean, there's a lot of really good trauma therapists understand how trauma shows itself in artwork and in play, even with the youngest of children. And I will say this, like I said earlier, molestation and abuse is the gateway to trafficking. Like that early abuse really sets them up. So some pimps, traffickers, they will say molestation is the boot camp for pimping. And that's specifically what they're looking for, is children that have already been molested. So talking to your counselors, talking to your school system, or whatever organization it is that you're involved with, and saying like, hey, I've got some concerns. Is this enough to just call in that I have some concerns, right? It doesn't mean that the kid's going to get yanked away from their family or anything like that, right? It's just like, who do we need to let know that there's some concerns? Because maybe a conversation will reveal that it could have been another peer. There's multiple times where I've seen situations where it's like, that kid's wasn't abused by an adult, but there's some other kid that was abused by an adult and is now acting out around other kids, or is now showing them pornography or whatever it is that they've seen, right? And that can have an impact on young children and what it is that they're saying and doing. And so that can certainly be revealed through art. So I just say, creating a good conversation in your organization or your school and saying like, hey, this is what I'm seeing and I'm concerned about it. I will say this, because I know a lot of people get frustrated. I know I'm going over time, so I apologize to everybody. I will say this, a lot of times people get frustrated and a little jaded because the system, child welfare, law enforcement, or whatever, doesn't always respond how we think they should be responding. They're not taking enough action. Just because we think, or we're jaded and we don't think they will take action, isn't a good reason not to report something. Right? So we always do the reporting. And if there's going to be a failure of action, then let it be on somebody else. Don't let it be on you, right? Even when we're frustrated at the system, because we all get frustrated at it sometimes.
Any other questions? Oh, we got one
Yeah.
more.
I retired in 2012, but I was teaching an after-school program for 5 Marshallese girls,
Mm-hmm.
and they shared that they were all brought over by family relations,
Mm-hmm.
and they ended up having to gays,
Yeah.
and some of them get pregnant.
Yeah. That happens. Actually, there was a counselor, I think it was a year ago. A counselor in Honolulu or somebody at the school noticed a girl that had recently moved to the islands was having bruises and signs of abuse and actually reported it in. And it was interesting because that report went to, I think, a regular child abuse detail and not the trafficking detail and law enforcement, which was actually kind of helpful because they moved really quickly to go see if that kid did have bruises and was being abused, and found out that both the kid and the mother was being labor trafficked and both were being sexually assaulted in the family home that they were brought to. So the mom was forced to do basically indentured servitude. Like, you owe us, you have to do all of our housekeeping. The daughter was also, and they were also being sexually assaulted. So labor trafficked and sexually assaulted. That intervention was shocking. It was like within 24 hours, they were both like out and helped. So that was a crazy good situation where the whole system actually worked as it's supposed to be. But it is important to pay attention because it can be a combination of labor and sex trafficking, or labor trafficking with sexual assault also in there. I talked a lot. Thank you, guys.
Let's give Veronica another big round of applause. We have such an important opportunity here. I'm just kind of calculating in my head with our 30 teachers and counselors in the room, with another 30 to 40 community members here and virtually. We are in contact with check that, 10,000, tens of thousands of youth, just among the folks in this room and virtually. So statistically, there are children and other people in our lives who are being trafficked. And it's so important to know what kind of response we should make. It's important. I didn't have that number. Now I have that number. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we just know more, and I hope that it saves lives and helps all of us to navigate the system. So thank you again, Veronica. I really appreciate it. We have our last guest speaker. Do we need like a quick stretch break? Yeah, can we do a quick stretch break? I'm not good at leading people to stretches. 10 jumping jack? No. Let's just give a quick stretch. Put your hands in the air. To one side if you can. You crack your back. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Okay. Somewhere you can do now. Okay, but we would like to introduce our last guest speaker of the morning. His name is Marty Oliphant. We've only met each other virtually, so good to see you in person, Marty. Marty is the Director of Program Integration at the Lilo Kalani Trust. He works to build and strengthen Kamali'i and their ohana by bridging internal and external programs and services to better meet the needs of Native Hawaiian children, youth, and their families. Marty supports the efforts of the Lilo Kalani Trust efforts around opportunity youth, including juvenile justice, early childhood initiatives, and child welfare services. Marty has over 27 years of working in the field of social in both community and government organizations. He has served children and families in both prevention and intervention programs. He's also, this is not in his file, but he's also a great dad, which I learned in our last webinar together. So here's Marty.
Thank you all for having me today. It's a privilege to be here and such a well-rounded group of people. I do want to share first off, mask off, sorry about that. I do want to share first off is that I'm really grateful for Carrie, who is one of my connections, Scott's New York connection that I made recently. But I'm here to talk about connections. And after that conversation is had, I'm talking about positive connections, okay? So it's not too good because we have both negative and positive ones. So thank you all for being here. If you're an educator, please stand up. Please stand up. If you are online, if you could just do a thumbs up if you're, I don't know if they can see you. Yeah. Well, all of us should be standing because we're all educators. We're all educators, right? But if your role is specifically a teacher, mahalo, mahalo, mahalo. One of my connections when I was a kid were my teachers, the group in Kanyohe and Kaliki. And that was important to me, having connections. I didn't know at the time that I needed connections, but as I grew and I started realizing that the importance of connections and what that could do for a child or youth is indescribable, and that connection is positive. And when you're teaching children, you're in their lives on a daily basis. Sometimes you see more of that child in daily hours than their actual parents, because their parents may be working multiple jobs, they're going to come home after school. Teachers make huge impact every single day. So thank you, mahalo, for that. When I first looked at the topic of connections, I thought there's so much to talk about regarding connections, right? So much to talk about. And I want to make sure that the 20 minutes I have to talk to you about, there'll be no question and answers, by the way, no kidding. But I think what happens is we talk about connections. I put my instructor hat on because I also used to part-time teach at UH Manoa. And one of the things that I do remember talking through is like, what is connection, right? What is connection? I thought about why is connections important to have connections? I thought I could talk about, having a strong support system helps people overcome challenges more easily and maintain a state of mental well-being, right? When you connect with others, you nourish your emotional and physical well-being, and you boost your ability to manage challenges in life. And the statistic I found was strong connections strengthen the immune system and increases our chances of longer life by 50%. That's huge, 50%. Thought about, maybe I can talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If I can do that, I can talk about where these needs are for our sense of connection. That's under the third ladder of that ring, or that step ladder is sense of belonging. Who in here has a sense of belonging? Who in here has a sense of belonging, right? To community, to your family, to your school, to the students you teach, to the people you interact with. That's super important. Being able to, thanks Scott, see you later. To be able to look at that need. And that's after we kind of tag onto the physiological needs as well as safety needs. But that sense of belonging is super important and encouraging. Then I thought about, why is connections important to me, to Marty? Why is it important to me? I can share with you a past that I had. I can share with you a past of being sexually abused as a kid. I can share about being physically abused as a kid. I can share about those things. But the thing I want to share about is having that one caring adult in my life made a huge difference in how I looked at life and how I shaped my pathway. I was in this program called Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Have anyone heard of that program? I was a little brother for many, many years, and my main connector in that program, I had two big brothers. One was in the military, so he got deployed. Enjoyed that friendship when we had it. But the second mentor I had, his name was Lambert Davis. He was in his 60s. He already had retired twice from different type of roles. He had adult children, he had grandkids. But the connection that I had with him was that no matter if we were across societal lines, he was a different race than I was. And he showed me respect, he showed me love, he showed me how to be a father, he showed me how to be a good son. It's all through his example of what connections could be like. I remember specifically when I was growing up, and we would go out on outings, he would always introduce me to people he kind of knew or whatever as his little brother. He didn't explain what that meant, and people were like, what, little brother? The age difference was kind of interesting, right? But I always felt that he was my biggest connection outside of my family members, right? And the other thing I realized when I was a kid is that after I turned 18, you officially end the match, but we didn't end our friendship. He was the first person I called when life events happened. He was the first person I would talk to about stuff that was going on in my life. And until the day he passed away back in 95. And no, I'm sorry, 2005. Sorry, 2005 he passed away. And I remember in the obituary, they put me as a nice son, which to this day has impacted how I feel life. Connections are important. Have I mentioned connections are important? Here's another part of a connection. My grandmother, growing up in Hawaii, you know there's a strong sense of ohana. And ohana is super important to how we engage and who we belong to is super important, right? Who we belong to is super important. And when you have those positive connections and you belong to someone, it builds on your confidence, it builds on who you are and who you identify as. That's how relevant connections are. My grandmother had this thing where she was our matriarch. So we were like, not our caretakers, but we were her ride to all the family parties. You know? We were her ride, so we got to go to every wedding, every first birthday party. We were at every luau. I remember it, like I love my grandmother for her social connections, right? She was the root of our family, and she passed in 1990. The wind beneath our wings deflated, as she was a social connector for all of our family. My grandmother had really humble surroundings. She lived in public housing, where I grew up in public housing. She lived in public housing, but her house was the hub of every relative that came through. Everyone had to go to grandma's house. You know, it was a rite of passage to spend time with her. I remember cooking tuna patties with her and learning how to do that with diced onions. Oh my gosh, flashbacks. Anyway, my grandmother, she held that space for all of us. She was our connector. And because of her, I think that legacy of making sure connections happen in my own family, the people I meet, continues to be my current purpose. So when I became a social worker, it was like, really, a social worker? It's because of the social part of social worker. It was because it was an opportunity for me to connect with people. I'm naturally curious about others. And I think when you're naturally curious about others, you want to get to know them. Hopefully through this experience, we are experiencing this natural connection just by sharing who you are in this space. I want you to do something for me real quick. I want you to write down 3 connections that you have. 3 connections that you have. Three connections that you have. Now, when I ask that question, I don't put any qualifiers on it, right? No qualifiers. I didn't say family, I didn't say colleagues, I didn't say supervisors. You put down your 3 connections. Now, pick one of those connections. And what did it take to either build and or maintain that connection? What does it take to maintain that connection? Go ahead. You want to answer out loud? Great, please. Communication, right? How often you have communication may also make a difference, right? How you communicate. I love the earlier speaker when she was sharing, like, when someone tells you good news, how do you respond to that news? Or how do you interact with that person? Makes a huge difference in building that relationship, right? And maintaining that relationship. I've been married for a little while here, since 1996. And I can tell you, if I don't disengage from the television to focus on my wife, we would have poor communication. We would not be talking, we would whatever. So it's like, gotta make a concerted effort. And I think the same thing happens in our relationships with the children we serve, the children we work with. Scott mentioned I work for Leo for Money Trust, and at our organization, it's all about connections. It's all about how do we show up for the youth? How do we make sure that they're feeling connected and they're feeling belonged? Our website is onipaa.org. That's ONIPAA. The onipaa, who knows what onipaa means? Raise your hand to know what that word means. Onipaa. It means steadfast, right? It means you go through the challenges, the resilience. That was our queen, one of our favorite themes was onipaa. And we believe in that, like thriving Native Hawaiian youth is our mission. How do we get them from where they're at to where they want to be? What do we do along their journey to get there? That's our main mission. On our website, forgive me, I don't have all these slides. I didn't know where to land on this presentation. So I don't know what to put in a PowerPoint because there's so much I wanted to share. So you're going to skip lunch to listen to me, okay? But here's the other thing about the work that I do, and Scott mentioned it in my bio, is I bridge internal and external programs so that our Kamali'i, our students, our people that we serve, can have opportunities within our organization and external into our organization. And part of that bridging, part of doing that is this thing called collaboration. Collaboration for me is super important. The things I look for in collaboration is, are there alignment to what I'm trying to accomplish to benefit the people I'm serving? So for example, another organization, another Native Hawaiian organization could be, or another non-Native Hawaiian organization I'm working with. I want to look at what their mission is and what our mission is and see where we can partner together. That's collaboration. Other things I look for is, what do I bring to the table in collaboration? What do I bring to the table? How do I leverage what I have to support a community or a program or a person to allow them to get to the next level that they want to go to? Do you guys have collaborations in your system that you work in? Who does not work with a collaboration regime? We all have collaborations, right? And what that really boils down to is a partnership that you can count on. Now, when I look at collaboration, I want to be sure that I can come to the table with something, a gift, a strength, a skill that will help support this. The question I look for in a partner is, what does that partner bring to the table? Their strengths, their gifts, what do they have? Okay. So collaboration is mindset. So then another question I have for you is, when you think of collaboration, write this down. What are your skills, strengths, gifts that you can bring to the collaboration? Write it down. And if you're not writing, I'm not offended by that. Don't worry. I'm not offended. Maybe hurt a little bit inside. Write down one of those gifts, talents that you bring to a collaboration or collaborative kind of partnership. What are those things? Why don't you shout out a few of those items that you have on your list that you wrote down? Just randomly popcorn your answers.
Humor.
Oh my gosh, you said humor. Carrie, I love you. Yeah. Well, that's one of my gifts. I love humor. I had a lot of dad jokes. If I had more time, Scott, I would share them, but yeah, okay. Yeah. Humor. Any other gifts you talents you guys bring? Understanding. Can you talk more about that? Understanding. Okay, great. I love that. Yeah. Thank you. Understanding. Any other thoughts?
Gratitude.
Oh my gosh, I love that answer. Gratitude. What do you mean by gratitude? What do you mean when you say gratitude?
Probably gratitude to someone that is my way. Gratitude for that opportunity.
Yeah, I love that, because you know what? We can't do this work alone. The Little County Trust can't do our work alone. We've known that, we understand that. So we need partnerships, we need collaborations. But we're always grateful when we have someone that we can turn to talk, start, make sure that we are on the same page and what can we do together to elevate our uniform population. What else do you bring to collaboration? Solution seeker. That's a good one. I'm right down the ground. Solution seeker, right? Looking for the answers, right? Looking how we can get there together. I love that. Thank you for sharing. A few more. Growth mindset. Oh, I love that one. And what do you mean when you say growth mindset? Hey, resilience to get through a problem. Love that. A fixed mindset does no one any good. A growth mindset for sure is very good. Yes. One more. I'm going to pick on someone. So everyone's focused. Everyone's looking. The eyes all averted at that same time. Don't pick me. The guy with the hoodie on. I love that. Go ahead. What's your strength you bring?
I guess just like, the bravery of people.
Yes, I love that. The bravery of putting yourself out there. That's great. Love that. Thank you so much. Thanks for stretching, being in the yellow. Pulling that out, yeah, I think the bravery of being yourself out there is important because if you put yourself out there, there's a possibility of being rejected. There is a possibility of being rejected. There's a possibility of not feeling connected to the person you're trying to put yourself out there for. Maybe our relationship is not as strong as I thought it was. You know, like it's like being in school, and because your teacher like you say this, and you assign a group project, and everyone's like, I don't want to be in that person's team, or I don't want to do that. Everyone comes to your table and says, I want to be on your team because you have these things you contribute to the project. It's a sense of belonging. It's a sense of connection. I was one of those kids when I was asked earlier, do you bring people into your world and you see them throughout? I need to do that because that was done for me. Because I believe in the power of connection and building each other up. That's why I love this term called mentoring. I'm sure all of you as educators had at least one mentor. Raise your hand if you had one mentor in your life. At least one mentor. I bank on the fact that I love the mentoring relationship. I pull those philosophies into the work I do as a supervisor. I pull that in because my job to uplift the next person. How do I do that? And children, especially youth, need that mentor in their lives. They're not going to ask for one. They don't know what that means. But if you become that for that child, oh my gosh, the power of that is amazing. I'm a bright kid. When I say bright kid, what does that mean? Bright kid. What does that mean, Carrie? I went to Castle High School. That's great. I was in the drama department. Loved it, every minute of it. But the thing that I always remember about being a dad, oh my gosh. You play on so many roles as a parent, like you got drama all the time when you're a parent. And the thing about being a dad, what I love about being a dad is I get to collaborate with my kids all the time. I get to see where their interests are, what their needs are, and collaborate with them to achieve their dreams. I get to do that. I get to collaborate with my kids all the time. I love my children, they're both adults. So when COVID happened, I wasn't that parent that to educate my child at home. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for parents that were able to do that. But my son was a senior in high school and my daughter was a senior in college. And I remember just telling them, I'm so grateful that you can manage your own to help me. Because I think, I don't think I could be a teacher of younger kids. It's just a lot. And so if you are, give yourselves a round of applause if you are a teacher, because I think that to me speaks a volume of who you are and your character. I've also had not so good teachers. God, have I had not so good teachers? Yeah. And those teachers still made a difference in my life, but it was harder for me to stretch about how they made the difference. So I'm going to leave you with a few things. Plus my time. 4 minutes. Okay. Thank you. 4 minutes. A lot more to say in 4 minutes. But here's the one thing I would want to say before I end. And that is when we look at the Kalani Trust, I need to talk about that a little bit or else I will not be invited back again. We have a few areas that we work with. One is our youth development. So we want to foster that pathway development of youth. We have Pu'ulali'u casework. So we do assessments on all of our youth, our children, see where they're at. We not only work with the youth, we also work with the whole entire family. Okay? But we believe in holistic approaches. We're child focused, but we're knowing that family centered. So children live or come from the family. So it's our role to make sure the family is strengthened. Okay? We do counseling services, we do Ohana or family strengthening services, as well as we do grief, loss, trauma support for our youth. A lot of our youth lose their parents in different things. One due to illness, other times it's due to foster care system. Sometimes it's due to divorce. Sometimes it's due to society. And so it's our role as grief counselors, we want to make sure that we are supporting them and helping them through that. And we also have Aina education programs. We totally believe in our connection to the Aina, to the land. And we always going to foster that type of connection. The Oakland Trust has been around for a while. And we're looking at how do we cover a few areas. One is youth development, the other is early childhood, and the other one is opportunity youth. And we believe if we support those areas, we'll see a difference in the benchmarks for youth, and especially in Hawaiian children. Part of my role is, again, like I said, with the systems work, including departments of child welfare or DHS. I look at DOE, which is most of you here. We also work with the Department of Health, all these different departments to see where we can help with prevention, intervention programs and help support. We share a lot of the same children for sure. So when I work together. So if you have a notion to, I want to collaborate with the County Trust, please think with me and we can talk about what that look like. I think one of the things I do want to say is a lot of things I want to say, but 2 minutes left, 1 minute, I don't know. I'm gonna do like a previous speaker and just take the whole time. I don't know. You guys are gonna be hungry for another 15 minutes. I was sitting by on a table, they're like, lunch is an hour and a half away. What? And then so I was like, I'm talking and getting it. So so I just want to say thank you and mahalo to all of you for listening and your attention span. Oh my gosh, you're modeling good behavior for your youth that you work with. I felt really supported up here. The one thing I can say is mask wearing. I know we're doing it in this environment, but one of my gifts that I think I do a lot is I smile. Because I think that's what gets people connected right away, and it just arms people, right? And so when I walk in, I was so funny I'm so funny. That was improper English, I'm sorry. I'm also a speaker of Pidgin English, so at your mind, be mindful of that. But here's the thing. I remember when we started first wearing masks, and I would be walking downtown, my office downtown, I'd be like smiling, and it's like, blah, blah, blah. I realized, don't see the smile. So it's like, okay, are my eyes smiling? I don't know. But I thank you all and all of you who are masked up in this presentation. Thank you for head nodding. I appreciated that. Thank you, Mr. Hoodie. I appreciate you answering bravery earlier. The thing you also bring is fashion to the table, so I appreciate that. Anyway, so thank you all so much, and I feel affinitive to you because I used to work in child sex abuse when I was working for the Department of Human Services. So a lot of things you're sharing had a lot of impact on my past experience, but we also have children who are trafficked, and we have to stop. So I appreciate you sharing your heart with us and your mission. So appreciate that. Thank you all for this time, and I hope you enjoy your lunch.
Thank you so much, Marty. Another round of applause for Marty. When Mary and I were brainstorming guest speakers and we came upon the concept of collaboration, Marty, you're at the top of our list as the ultimate collaborator. So thank you so much.
And I just want to thank Naomi and Veronica and Marty. We know how incredibly difficult it is to be a parent and how incredibly difficult it is to be a teacher. And neither can do all of the work that is needed. It takes a village. And so what we try to do with our speakers and our community leaders that both model and teach peace building and conflict resolution and intervention and violence prevention is to bring those resources to you. So we will be sharing all of the contact information of Naomi and Veronica and Marty. But I also just want a big round of applause and thank you for all the work that they do in my community. And their willingness to support all of you. And so thank you all so much.